All right, and welcome back to the Monday Injury Report. It is Monday, December 7th, and I am joined as always by Dr. Mark Casimiro. How's it going, Mark?
What's up, Nick? How's it going, bud? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Happy Monday is right. I don't know if you can see what I got on here. Got a little ugly sweater, little Patriots.
Back on the bandwagon.
I never fell off,
That's
but
right, Nick. You didn't fall off. That's true.
I was definitely taking this season with a grain of salt and knowing that they might not be what they've been in the past, but they've won 4 out of 5. They're back to 500, and according to Pro Football Focus, they have a 21% chance to make the playoffs.
Nice.
So they do have some tough matchups still coming up, and I'm killing some time right now, letting some people join us live so they can interact with us and ask us some questions about their favorite players. Week 13 is almost over. We have 2 more games. We have one tonight and one tomorrow night. And then the fantasy playoffs begin. To anybody out there who's still fighting for a spot in the playoffs, good luck tonight and tomorrow night, or hope you had a good weekend. If you were able to get a first-round bye, congratulations. Maybe you want to talk to us about somebody who might be playing a week or two down the line. But get your questions in. If you have an injury concern and you're wondering if you're going to be able to depend on one of your players, or if they're going to be a percentage of themselves, if they're going to be 75%, 80% of what they can normally do, make sure you get on here and ask Dr. Mark. So, seeing I am repping the Patriots today with my ugly Christmas sweater. And they played yesterday. It was a blowout. But with that said, Cam Newton's dealing with an abdomen issue. And he still doesn't look great throwing the ball, still short hopping the ball a little bit. Now, he ran the ball more than I thought he would yesterday, seeing he had that injury designation. But what are your thoughts on Cam and what you've seen from him? Is it because of that abdomen issue that he's looked the way he has, or do you think it's something else?
Yeah, I think it's something else. I don't think that the abdomen issue, it doesn't look like he's really struggling because of that. I think beginning of the year, I thought he'd have more problems because of his old foot injury. But his mobility's looked pretty good as the year goes on. I think he's having more issues with his shoulder. So he had a labral repair over the summer. And I think you're seeing the effects of that, where his inability to get any type of power or like drive on the ball. He looks good if he's able to step into the throw. But if he doesn't have his feet set and he can't step into the throw, he doesn't look as good. And even some of the throws that he is, stepping into, he's short hopping a lot of them. He's over the receiver on a lot of them as well. And you can just see by his warm up, by his throwing motion, he doesn't have that same type of range of motion that we're used to seeing from him. Whereas before, and I'm very tight, so I can't get very back there. But a lot of these guys, they're able to go back into 60 degrees of external rotation, 80 degrees of external rotation if you're a baseball pitcher, and really that's where they can get the force to kind of really, drive that ball forward with some force. He doesn't have that. And if you look at him, he looks real slow and methodical with his motion. It tells me that he's having some issues with that shoulder. So I don't think that this is something that's going to get better as the season goes on. I think that this is something that will probably plague him through the rest of his career. He just doesn't have the same kind of shoulder strength as he did before. And a guy, for those older people who are listening, a guy that would be very similar would be Chad Pennington, who played for the Dolphins for a while and the Jets. He was, bye Brittany, he was able to make every throw. And then he had that shoulder surgery and then wasn't able to throw a 10-yard out. Wasn't able to throw a lot of the throws in their playbook. Wasn't able to do, and that kind of spelled the end of his career. And so he had to become a kind of a dink and dunk guy towards the end of his career. I think you're kind of seeing that same transition for Cam Newton now, whereas he used to be a guy that had a cannon for an arm and can make every throw. And now just, based on his injury history, and he's got a lot more miles on his body now, he just can't do it the same way. And I think that is causing him to have a lot of his troubles in their passing game.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that they've really, they've transitioned the offense to, a run-heavy offense, both running with Cam. I feel like more confident watching him run the ball than when I see him drop back to pass. Pennington was successful with that dink and dunk offense, but I don't really feel like we've seen that yet with Newton. But is the shoulder? Is there something that he can? Some of that will improve over time, or is this something that is just gonna really just follow him around the rest of his career, and he's not gonna have that ability to pass down the field?
I think the latter. I think this is something that is going to probably, I think when teams look at the end of the year, whether he stays with the Patriots or not, it's something that teams are going to look at. Maybe if he's willing to be a backup, he could be a backup for a couple of years and do that if he's willing to do that. I just don't, this isn't going to get better. I think this is what it is. Maybe if he has a full offseason of strengthening, that shoulder is what it is. I think that he'll continue to have issues with it. I think it'd be an issue of concern. So you got to make sure he's well protected. If he gets hit with his arm in a kind of a weird position, that's not going to be a good thing for him either. So I think it just is what it is for now.
Well, we'll have to keep an eye on that. Stidham did come in the game yesterday, threw a touchdown. It was in garbage time, but, I wonder sometimes if this was a transition year where they wanted to give Stidham another year to develop before they put him in there. But from what I've heard, it doesn't seem like they have much confidence in him, and we might not have the quarterback of the future on the roster. When I say we, I mean the New England Patriots. I'm a part of the team, All right, so let's talk about some other fantasy guys. Christian McCaffrey. If you were lucky enough to draft him number 1 overall, and you didn't have him for the majority of the season, and you still snuck into the playoffs, good for you. Hats off. They're saying he's going to play. The coach is optimistic that he'll play against the Broncos this Sunday. He's dealing with that shoulder injury. Would you be confident if you had him in starting him in the first round of the fantasy playoffs?
If I had him, yes. I mean, definitely, because you gotta go with him. I just wonder how much action he's going to get. That would be my concern, is that he might be on a pitch count, so to speak. Obviously, we're dealing with football, not baseball, but they might really manage how many reps he gets. So he may not be in the game as much as what we're used to seeing. But at that end, like him only getting 20 reps is a lot better than a lot of guys getting 30 reps. So I think you got to kind of go with it and just kind of keep your fingers crossed that he makes it through the end of the game. And then next week, if you make it through this week and you have him on the field next week, hopefully he gets a little bit more activity and he can be a little bit more involved in the offense. So I think go for it, but just keep your fingers crossed that he doesn't get any awkward hits, that he protects himself, and that he's able to finish the game and then continue to participate as the season ends down here.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I mean, he's just so dynamic when he's out there that you can't not have him out there, because the moment you do, he's going to put up 30-plus points. It seems like any game where he's playing in, he just performs. So hopefully he gets out there and can perform for you if you snuck in. So we're going to switch sports up a little bit, but there's some news this past week that Celtics guard Kemba Walker had a stem cell injection into his knee. Now, me not knowing anything, I think, here we go. It's this magic potion, stem cells in the knee. Boom. He's going to be good to go, and these stem cells are going to work their magic, and his knee is going to slowly progress over time and start to get stronger and better. I didn't expect him to be missing time because of this. Now, I don't know if this is, in your realm of expertise, but what is their goal with this stem cell injection in his knee, and what are they looking to get out of this for Kemba?
Yeah, I think it comes down to a couple of things. I think the first thing it comes down to is the fact that they literally just ended the bubble season 2 months ago. And so these guys haven't really had a lot of time off. He obviously was dealing with the knee injury last year. He had to miss some time, going into the All-Star break and then afterwards. And they had that big layoff before they started the bubble. And he actually felt pretty good when they started the bubble. And then as they started playing more and more, it became something that he was dealing with again. So it tells me a few things. Definitely, in the physical therapy world, we don't see a lot of our patients get the stem cells and get these injections. That's more something that they do for athletes. I think there's more options now for weekend warriors and general population people like you and myself, Nick. But a lot of times you have to pay out of pocket for them. They can be a little expensive. So we don't see a lot of these types of things. but it tells me that there's probably some type of chronic issue with his knee. So he's a basketball player, so there's a good chance that he has some arthritis in there. Some bone on bone stuff going on. He's had some cartilage repairs in the past and some meniscectomies in the past, going back to his UConn days. So it tells me that there's a little bit of an issue there. And then a lot of these basketball players have a chronic patella tendinopathy, or chronic jumper's knee is what they call it, which is just tendonitis of the patella tendon. Because of what basketball players have to do, they're running and jumping and changing direction. That puts a lot of strain on their patella tendon, obviously, and on their knee joint. So for a guy who already was having some breakdown issues and was having a hard time lasting through a full season last year, and then coming back with minimal rest time this year to jump back into the whole season again in 2 weeks, I think is unrealistic. I think if you had him start the season without any type of treatment, you were looking at down the road him being out for an extensive period of time. So in my mind, they're trying to use the stem cells to help, obviously decrease some of the irritation and the irritability in that knee, to decrease some of the pain, help the body kind of heal and regenerate itself a little bit. But I think the more important thing is that he's going to have to go through a 3-month progressive strengthening program to get him ready to deal with the rigors of the NBA season. I think if you're a Celtics fan, I think it leaves you a little nervous because the messaging that we all heard before he got here was that he's been a healthy guy. He's had no injuries. And then now starting last year, he was in and out of the lineup because of his knee. Now they're doing the stem cell treatment, and they're going to do a 3-month kind of strengthening program before they get him into the season. There's no guarantees. He could play the whole season and look pretty good. He could come back for a few weeks, then have to go back out again, depending on how his knee responds. So I think from a Celtics standpoint, you have to be a little bit nervous about it. But I think it's a smart thing to do. I think you're going to see a lot of NBA athletes this year. They're going to take those first 2 to 3 months off. You're going to see a whole lot more of what's the phrase that they use, Nick? Not deconditioning, not the phrase deloading or load management, right?
Load management. Yeah. The old Greg Popovich strategy.
You're going to see a lot more of that. I think LeBron James, you're going to see a lot him on the bench for a lot of the games to start the season on load management. You're going to see a lot of the, Kawhi Leonard's another guy. You're going to see a lot on that load management, not playing a lot of the back-to-back nights because now the schedule is going to be a lot harder for them. They're playing a lot more 3 nights in a row, a lot more back-to-back nights. These guys, they spend, it's a long season and they put a lot of wear and tear on their bodies. You can't expect them, and the playoffs is another season altogether. So you can't expect them to just finish their season in July, then come back in December and start playing again. It just is unrealistic. And with all the money these guys have behind them, you have to take good care of them so that they can last the full season and then last into next season. So I think you're going to see a lot more of this in the NBA. I think hockey's another sport. When they get started, you'll see a lot more of this because they didn't really have a full off season. And I think that just is what it is based on the pandemic and based on where we are now.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a Celtics fan, you have to realize, they have Jaylen Brown locked up. They have Jason Tatum locked up. Both those guys signed big contracts. That's the youth. That's the future of the franchise. Kemba was good last year when he was out there. So getting him as healthy as they can while you have this young talent and surrounding them with some, veteran pieces that can help make them better, I think is key. But I really think the focal point of are those 2 young players and, building something around them. And so far, Danny Ainge has been able to lock up that young talent with the most recent contract. So we'll see, we'll see what they do. Gordon Hayward is sayonara. He left. And, that was another guy that we brought in and dealt with injuries most of the time when he was here. So, there's a lot of sports. I think a little bit of it is luck, staying healthy out there and being able to perform. So remember, everybody out there, if you guys have any questions about any players that you have on your favorite team, your fantasy team, you saw an injury to somebody and you're just wondering, what's that recovery going to look like? When will he be back? Make sure that you put it in the comments below. Dr. Mark and I were talking before the show, talking about doing maybe a Thursday afternoon edition of the injury report going into, the fantasy playoff weekend. Pats play Thursday night. So if you have any questions, put them in the comments down here, and Dr. Mark and I will get to them on our Thursday edition of our injury report. Dr. Mark, as always, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Nick. Thanks for having me. Everyone have a good week.
Everybody have a happy, healthy, safe week.
Peace.